Okay, good evening, everybody. My name's Rick Hudson. I'm one of the assistant principals at TLSC Secondary College. Welcome to tonight's exam information session. Can I just get an indication maybe in the chat from one of the teachers that you can hear me okay and we're all good to go?
Yep, sounds good. We can hear you clearly.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yes, thank you for joining us tonight. Still lots of people joining. You can see we're up to about 79 participants, which is fantastic. We are looking at presenting tonight some information to support our students currently in years 10, 11 and 12. And whilst I'll be the one doing the main presentation of information to you tonight, I am joined by a number of staff with us. We've got Antoinette Mazzarotto, who is our senior school sub-school leader. I know we've got Mr. Tim Williams, who is our middle school sub-school leader, and Miss Burlack, Teresa Burlack, our assistant principal for middle school, is here as well, and Danny Dedas, our principal, is here with us as well. So thank you. They'll be assisting me tonight also with just moderating the chat function. So we probably all got a little bit of experience doing things like this last year, about going online and make sure your microphone's on mute. And but if you've got questions and so on, so there is a chat function. So at any time, please feel free to pop a question into the chat function, and one of those other teachers will be happy to assist best they can. We will have some time towards the end of the presentation for some questions as well. So tonight we are going to look at the presenting information for students between years 10 and 12, looking at supporting this upcoming exam period. And towards the end, I'll invite those parents of students who are in year 12 or perhaps year 11 doing a year 12 subject, if they'd like to stay on to the last few minutes. We've just got a few extra slides in relation to some specific year 12 and VCE information. All right. So when we're talking about exams, this is again, 2021 is another fairly unique year. So in 2020, we all have our own recollections and challenges of 2020, but as a school, we didn't run exams last year. The only exams that did run were the external VCAR exams for the year 12s, and even they happened a little bit later than what they would normally have taken place. So we're very conscious of a number of factors coming into this exam period. So we know that for our year 10s, they may have in the past, the Taylor's Lakes have at least been exposed to an exam for English and maths at year 9. That's something we have done in previous years, but that hasn't happened. So for our year 10s, basically this is their first exam period. For our year 11s, so last year, yes, they would have sat exams at year 10 and had that experience coming into year 11. That hasn't happened. So again, for the year 11s, this is really their first exam period coming into. And then with our year 12 students, so similarly as year 11s last year, we didn't run exams. However, there may be, or there will be some students currently in year 12 this year who were undertaking a year 12 subject last year, and so they did, have the benefit of sitting one or two exams last year. So we know that as we're coming into the senior years of schooling, that the pressures do increase, and I guess we're probably seeing and feeling that even a little bit more this year off the back of last year. So I think, it does need to be acknowledged that as a school, I think we did incredibly well under the circumstances in terms of the structures and so on that we put in place to support remote learning. The teachers certainly did a fantastic job in being able to ensure that they made themselves accessible, that work was online, and we were interacting as much as we possibly could, and the students likewise. Having said that, we also need to acknowledge that probably the natural rigors associated with even year 9, 10 and 11 last year, it's understandable that students, probably didn't experience the full range of rigor last year. No fault of their own or the teachers of the school. Every school was challenged in those particular ways. So it means that coming into this year has got some additional challenges to it. So we know that hopefully with our students in year 10, they can see that this new exam period that's coming up is going to be a challenge for them as they experience sitting exams in all of their subjects. And this year, by extension of that, they've probably been exposed to sort of having a full range of teachers. And we know that some of our year 10 students are already beginning their VCE subjects as well. Year 11, it does increase a bit more there in terms of those expectations with homework. There's a lot of new content and skills. We start talking about the language of SACS and the VCE processes that come from that. So maybe some students and parents tonight have been perhaps seeing things pop up on campus this year about students at risk or not SAC ready, just in an attempt to make sure that we're all on the same page and acting very quickly when we know that things do need to change or have a little bit more attention paid to that. So that's something probably new that students would have seen this year. And then again with year 12, we know that there are additional stresses, plays and pressures placed in terms of gaining. We start using terms like the ATAR, sitting for formal VCAR exams, and I guess that's ever-present challenge of those expectations between the student, the teacher, and the parent. So just to get some context there around how things are structured for us at the school and how it's looked to support those formal exams, the VCAR exams that students will be sitting in year 12. So we know that at year 10, this is going to be students sitting for the first time, but the purpose of the exams at 10 and 11, and even by extension with the year 12s and doing their practice exams, is very much that, is to give students exposure to this type of assessment, this type of environment. So the more, I guess, practice that they can have at this, hopefully the more prepared and comfortable that they will feel with this process that is sitting in front of many as they're contemplating completing a VCE year 12. What we do have as a school over a number of years, that third dot point, is in relation to an alignment of our year 10 and 11 exams with the VCAR exams. So the year 12 VCAR exams, they're not set by Taylor's Lakes teachers. They're set externally. The year 10 and 11 exams and the year 12 practice exams are set by our own classroom teachers. And so it is important to make sure that students are receiving a similar type experience when it comes to things like formatting, timing, structures of exams, so they're not getting, I guess, something that's totally different by the time they get to year 12. With our year 12s, we are running practice exams. So we're running Unit 3 exams coming up in a few weeks, and we'll also run some practice exams at the end of Term 3 during those September-October holidays, which I guess probably most schools are doing something similar to that these days. In relation to your exams, they will be assessed. So students will receive a percentage grade for their levels of achievement at years 10, 11 and 12. But again, it is important to make a point there that we understand that if you do have a poor performance on an exam, it's not going to automatically lead to you receiving an unsatisfactory result or failing a subject. Okay, so it is the experience. We obviously want students to be able to prepare the best that they possibly can to be able to achieve to the best of their abilities. And then just that last stop point. Okay, so in year 12, yes, I guess a poor performance on an exam will impact the study score, but it won't, again, it won't be a determining factor as to whether a student has passed or failed a particular subject. When we look at some of the timings for year 12 exams at the end of the year, just to try and put things in a bit of context there as well, and how they compare with our year 10 and 11 and our practice exams at year 12. So all of our exams at years 10, 11 and 12 this year will run for an hour and a half in a double period within the school day. How does that compare with year 12 exams at the end of the year? For those students, well, English is the longest exam there. It goes for 3 hours, and you can see some of the variations there with some combinations of other subjects, math subjects, science, commerce, humanities, and the arts and technology. So it is a little bit varied as it gets to year 12 as well. So as I mentioned there previously, the school takes an approach to backward mapping the exam experience of students in years 10 and 11 to match that as close as possible to what students would receive in that equivalent studies year 12 exam. And there are exam guidelines and protocols that we set for teachers in terms of being able to be mindful of the structures, the timing, and what types of questions will be asked of students. So we'll look to unpack that a little bit as we're moving along. Okay, so our dates for this year are on the screen now. Starting with, we've just made a just starting with the GAT. So we'll go into a little bit more detail about the GAT shortly. But the GAT is a formal VCAR exam, and this is one which all students who are completing at least one year 12 VCE subject need to sit this exam, and this one will take place on the 9th of June, which sits sort of right in the middle of the overall exam period. For students in year 10 and 11, your exams will take place starting on Thursday, the 3rd of June, right through to the following Friday, the 11th of June. And for our year 12 students, they will commence on Monday, the 7th of June, through to that Friday, the 11th of June. Just a note there already for any year 11 accelerated students that we would like you to attend your year 12 exam as a priority. That may mean then in some instances that a year 11 student may need to reschedule one of their year 11 exams. In terms of the timetable, so I was just going to that very last dot point there. So the timetable in its first draft has just been released to staff today, and we're hopeful of being able to make that available to students in the next couple of days. We're just confirming some rooming allocations, but generally our exams at the school take place in the S block. So students, you can imagine those classrooms, S17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's predominantly where your exams will be taking place. All right, so let's move into just looking at this section now on some tips, I guess some key strategies, ways that parents can support this process leading forward as well. So as I got here, that exam assessors, and we have many members of staff who also assess the Year 12 VCAR exams. They would estimate that as many as 30% of all mistakes in exams are not really the result of that lack of knowledge, but simple avoidable mistakes, or most probably they're a result of poor exam techniques. So we're going to just try to highlight a few of those as we're moving forward. Yes, it is important to make clear that certainly the school's stance, particularly on this round of exams, bearing in mind what 2020 allowed us to do or not do, is really a focus on ensuring that students have an opportunity to experience success through the exam process, to look to continue to build your confidence in being able to continue with that process in the future. So, part of the underlying message of tonight will be, certainly for students, is that with a consistent, diligent, committed approach to your studies, and now in particular to exam preparation, that you should be well placed to be able to experience success. That's really what we want for all of you. All right, so a little bit of the breakdown there with the components of testing, and I guess what needs to be sort of highlighted as we're moving forward. So we can see there that some students may have their performance impacted by one or more of these factors. So the format of the exam, which will change from subject to subject, and it is important that students are getting clarity from their teachers about what the format of their subject will entail, and that'll be things like there'll be some subjects that will allow a section on for multiple choice, and then there'll be other subjects where there won't be any multiple choice at all. And again, that's just part of that backward mapping and modelling from Year 12 practices. You can see the importance of reading and comprehension, 40%, and why there's always such a push from schools all the way through in terms of supporting students' literacy and English skills in being able to interact with and unpack the information in their exams. 20% specifically from the content knowledge, 15% errors. We'll look at some of those maybe common errors that are made, and 15%, which is still a sizable chunk there in relation to motivation. And we'll look to unpack that in that next slide as well. So if you can see from the diagram here, success is an iceberg. So what can people see? But what actually sits underneath that? So they do say that the total mass of an iceberg that you can see above the water is only a fraction of what is actually attached to that iceberg. So you can have a look at some of those key words, what people don't see: dedication, hard work, good habits, persistence, failure, sacrifice, sometimes the disappointment that comes through these experiences as well. And no doubt that we need to have some realities in check when it comes to things like exams, because you will be getting that level of feedback, and it is understandable that some people may feel levels of disappointment, but that's not always a bad thing. It's something that we can continue to build on as we're looking to always be lifelong learners. But certainly the exam periods are ones that can challenge students. They can challenge families while students are preparing for those at home. So sometimes the students might be a little bit more anxious at home. So that's perhaps to be expected, and to just to plan for how we look to manage those situations at home as well. But we really want to make sure that everyone's getting positive reinforcements, plenty of support, and students, your parents are expecting you to showcase that you are being dedicated to your studies, that you are trying your best. And sometimes that means, having to sacrifice one or two things in the lead up to and during that exam period to make sure that you can actually make the most of your opportunities. So the next part of the presentation is going to focus in on questions that students will be asked, or formats of their exams, and perhaps how to best prepare for those, or certainly making sure that we're being much more aware of these. So individual classroom teachers will be going through this information in the lead up to your exams, in being able to make clear as to what the format and the structure and the timing of your exam would look like. But it is, just to give a snapshot there, it is reasonable to assume that you are going to receive questions in the exam that are going to be representative of different question types. So there's a lot of work across the school and in lots of classrooms around the task words. So getting used to the task words, and there's a range of them there in the brackets: list, describe, identify, and discuss, evaluate, and so on. And each has its own specific meaning, and each has its own specific expectation as to what a teacher would be looking for in a student's response. So it is very important that that students continually keep themselves, up to date with what is the difference between, say, a list question and an evaluate question. You would typically find that something like a list question would be one that doesn't require a lot of information. It probably wouldn't be a question that would be given many marks, whereas an evaluation or an evaluate type question would be one that you would expect is probably going to need to attract a greater mark allocation due to the complexities of being able to look at strengths and weaknesses of a particular concept. It's reasonable to assume that you will be faced with what we refer to as higher order versus lower order questions, similar to, I guess, what I've just highlighted to you there. We do need to be aware of what are the skills as well as the knowledge that is going to be examinable. So those students that are sitting in VCE classes at the moment and are subject to what's referred to as VCAR's study design, each of those subjects will have a very discrete set of key knowledge points, but also key skills. So it's not enough just to know a particular concept, but we need to be able to show that we're able to apply it. That's actually the skill in a particular way. Your teachers in your exams are going to make use of scenarios and case studies. They're going to make use of data and graphs. There'll be that difference between remembering and understanding. So you might still get some questions where, again, it is asking you to just have some quick recall of information. But again, those questions that are going to require you to apply that knowledge and to show your understanding, that's where the majority of the marks in any exam is going to come from. Always look for clues, such as those marks allocated and the space given to write your response. So, something that's been given 2 lines in your exam, and another question where there's maybe the equivalent of about half a page of lines that are set aside for you, that's an indication already from your teacher as to how much they're expecting you to write. And that would be backed up by how many marks are allocated to each of those questions. If you run out of room that's given to you by the teacher and you've got more to say, that's fine. You just got to make it clear to your teacher that you're going to continue that question, maybe on another piece of paper or on the back of the exam, or you just got to make it clear. So if it was question 2 that I ran out of room for, make it very clear that you put down the bottom, question 2 continued on another sheet. And then when you get to that sheet, again, you clearly put your name and question 2 continued. Okay. And always a good idea to make sure you're planning your responses before you start your writing. So in each of the exams that we're coming into, each student will be given 10 minutes of reading time. So during reading time, that is the focus, so no writing. If it's a subject that allows you to have a calculator, you can use your calculator during that time, but largely we're just talking about reading through the exam very carefully and planning out your responses. So you're actually starting to build what you are wanting to say when it is time to go to writing time. Understanding also that in a lot of different subject areas, you don't necessarily have to start with question 1 and finish with the last question on the paper. Sometimes you can chop and change around. You might have a look at question 1 during your reading time and say, well, I'm actually having a bit of a blank on this at the moment. So when writing time starts, I might actually just start with question 2, because that's where I feel comfortable about that, and I can get some momentum happening in my exam, and I can build some confidence, and hopefully I'll be able to come back to question 1 at some point. So here are some examples of types of questions and mark allocations between different learning areas. So you can see you've got maths, PE, biology, history, technology, and so on, and the different mark allocations. So just scanning that page, you can see that a subject like history, for instance, an evaluate question might be one that attracts 10 marks associated with it. In that column right down the bottom there, food technology, a discuss question might be one that attracts an 8-mark allocation. Whereas up at the top right, PE, discuss might allocate 6 marks for that. What you can see though, even though they've got those subtle differences between each of those subject areas, you can see that each of these, and this obviously this is not all the subjects, but they each have a range of question types that they're going to ask you. So you can see that they're all going to ask you questions that might attract those 1 or 2 marks, and they're also going to have those questions where there's either 4, 6, 8, or 10 mark allocations. All right, so let's have a look at some of the question types. So when it comes to multiple choice questions, and we'll probably find that in a range of science subjects, perhaps math subjects, and maybe some of the health PE ones, there might be some multiple choice taking place. So the general rule of thumb is no, the answer is not C for everything. The general rule of thumb there for dealing with multiple choice questions obviously is reading the question carefully. What can you take from the question? That might be a something that will help to clearly indicate what the answer would be. But in those questions where you're not quite sure, generally multiple choice questions with 4 responses are set up to have at least one response which is clearly not reasonable to be considered. So even if you got those questions where you are not too sure what the answer might be, go through that process first of, that process of elimination. Because you'll probably find that there's at least 1 out of those 4 that you can knock out straight away. Sometimes there's even 2 out of that 4 that you can knock out straight away. What we do encourage though for all students, particularly with the multiple choice, is that you don't leave any questions blank, because even on a question where you feel like you really don't know what the question is, if you go through that process of elimination, you may have brought it down to at least 2 choices, let's say A and B. We want you to at least commit to one, because you never know, you might actually get lucky with it anyway. Okay, and if you get it wrong, well, it's not really going to act against you. I have it on good authority that the answer is A for this one too, by the way. Okay, graphs and use of data is going to be pretty common in, again, a number of exams. So this will come up in those exams in maths, in science, through the range of humanities. If you consider things like, it will come up in legal studies, economics, it'll come up in PE. So it's definitely an area that students need to continue to work on their capacity to deal with how information is presented to them. So if you have a look at this one, for instance, so it will give some graphical information there. This one has to do with some stock turnover. So I take this is probably an accounting question. And then it's underneath the graphic there where we get that information. So the trend in stock turnover could be caused by either positive or negative factors. And this question actually wants you to provide one positive factor and one negative factor may have led to the trend in stock turnover shown above. So what they actually want you to do with teachers that would give you this information is to not just tell us information about what is a positive factor and what is a negative factor, but to put it into a bit of a context as to what you have been presented with. So this is talking about stock turnover between the years 2014 to 2016. Looks like it's on an increased upward trend in there. So they're inviting you to be able to make some comment about the data in your answer when you're talking about that positive factor or you're talking about that negative factor. So always remember when we've got these questions where there's scenarios brought to you that the teachers are inviting you to make comment about those scenarios as well. Here's another one that uses some data linked to a multiple choice question. So again, we've got 4 options in there as well. So again, the process here would be look at what information has been presented to you in the scenario. So this one talks about how a student recorded the weight of over 10,000 bean seeds. There's how it was graphed. It gives you information about the seeds came from plants grown in identical conditions. So again, that's some pointed information that's been presented there to you. So then you can come down to the 4 options. So the seed weight varies because, so what can you gather either from the information that's in the graph or the information that preceded that as well. Scenarios will be heavily used again throughout a range of subject areas, and these questions can be challenging for students on a number of levels. First one would be just taking an initial look at this question. You can see that there's comparatively quite a lot of reading to do, and that could be the first challenge that students are faced with, and certainly what we want to promote is students not feeling as if that is too much to read, or I'm not going to invest time into sort of breaking that down. Because you can see there that this question is allocated 6 marks, so it's a pretty sizable type question. Certainly we want students attempting all questions on their exams. And it would be such a shame if we had students feeling as if that they sort of can't interact with a question like this, because that would leave, as I said, in this case, 6 marks out of the whole exam allocation. That could be quite a chunk that would impact your overall result. So again, there is a lot of different types of information that are in something like this scenario, where it talks about the particular school implementing a ride to school day. And so that's primarily what's in that first paragraph. Then it goes with, while the initiative was initially successful, ultimately it was unsustainable, and as a result, it's no longer used by the school. So it gives you all this information about what was happening at the school and why. And then the actual question comes right at the bottom there. So in this particular subject, they want the students to apply the social ecological model to critique the bicycle riding initiative and to explain why it was not successful in the long term. So again, there's a number of things that are in there. And so for a 6-mark question, it's reasonable to assume that teachers are going to want students to probably have some information there about defining what is the social ecological model. So to make that clear, so that's where they can demonstrate their knowledge and understanding of one of the key knowledge dot points. But then being able to apply that knowledge with a real life, or in this case, the scenario that was happening at the school, which is how can you apply that now to the bicycle riding initiative? So there would be some marks allocated in terms of how they made that application. And then there would be another couple of marks around that last part of the question, which was explain why it was not successful in the long term. And then that's asking the students now to make some justifications. So if I had a quick look at this question, I would maybe break that down around this 6-mark question is actually 3 lots of 2 marks. There's probably 2 marks at play there in terms of how well a student spoke about their knowledge of the model. Probably 2 marks about how they applied that understanding to the case study, which is the bike riding initiative, and then probably a final 2 marks around how they went about explaining and justifying why it was probably not going to be successful in the long term. So that's how we like to have students to try to break that down. And that process that we just went through is something that students, in their reading time, could actually start working through that before it does become time to have a go at putting pen to paper. This particular question we can sort of see here again starts with a scenario. This is probably something that's come from one of the business subjects. So it talks about Alice, and she wants to follow in the footsteps of some successful leaders and CEOs that she studied. And then it goes to question A, which asks the student to define the following qualities that Alice will need in order to be an effective leader. And it actually highlights 3 particular traits that they want students to be able to talk about. The more interesting thing there, just from the top of the page there, can we see that where it says question 3, and in brackets, this one says 19 marks. Now, we wouldn't expect that students are going to get a single question that would attract such a large mark allocation, but it is reasonable to expect that questions may be broken up into smaller chunks, which on the whole would contribute to, in this case, 19 marks. So this first one here, question 3A, with the definitions of interpersonal, informational, and decision making, perhaps that little component we can see on the screen may have a mark allocation, say, of about 3 marks, maybe 1 mark per definition, because definitions are largely seen as that lower order type question that wouldn't attract the big mark allocations. But you would expect that for question 3, perhaps on the next page, there would be question B, question C, question D, and the expectations placed on students would increase as the question goes ahead. The key thing to really get back to students is to, when you have questions like this that start off with a scenario or a prompt, it is important that students always look to try to link back to that prompt when they're answering the questions that the teacher has set on the exam. And that is true all the way through, especially true up into year 12. Okay, so we've gone through a few examples there of some types of questions that students may expect to come into contact with as part of their exam experience. We're just going to turn now our attention a little bit to the other really big factors as to what can support a successful exam period for students. And this is in relation to your motivation and what the slide is referring to there in terms of your growth mindset. So, as I said at the start of the presentation, the information that's gone into teachers there about being very mindful, particularly with this being the first exam experience for many of you. Yeah, we really do want students to be able to experience success within this exam process. But that will only be, possible if students also come into this with your own growth mindset, that you're also feeling positive about, yes, if I can put in some time and effort and focus, can be diligent in that, then I will be able to experience success through this process. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at some of the words that are in the bubbles around that, though. That's in that top left one there, I want to learn from criticism. So that's probably a big challenge for most of us most of the time, understanding that we can feel very vulnerable through this process, but it is an opportunity just to keep getting some feedback, because this is just about trying to build your level of experience and confidence moving forward and being able to continue to do better. So that's fine. You want to be able to welcome any feedback that you're going to be getting from your teachers around this experience. I'm comfortable making mistakes. We all make mistakes. We all have to make mistakes. That is an integral part of learning. And so, if we get feedback around getting an exam result back, and like one of the previous slides had there about a feeling of disappointment sometimes. Yes, that's understandable. That's reasonable to feel disappointed sometimes. But as long as you can look yourself in the mirror and your family knows that you've actually worked hard and being able to prepare for this experience, and that's fine. That's part of the learning experience. Not everybody's going to get 100% on everything. It just never happens. So we're really looking at trying to continue to build, your grit, your perseverance, and not sure whether kids know the tale of the tortoise and the hare these days, but slow and steady is actually probably the way to go. So particularly those students starting in year 10 now with this process, you are building over this next 3-year period. And then as you move into year 11 and with students into year 12, yes, the timelines are different for you, but again, just look to build slowly to gain that confidence and putting yourself in a good position to be able to receive some favourable feedback from your teachers to build your confidence moving forward. So it is very important to have the right approach to this period of time, and this all has to be owned by the whole family. Okay, so yes, understanding that hard work will generate results, and everybody's best result is different. Okay, so don't be worried about measuring yourself up against anybody else at the school or in your class, or even in your family. If you've got brothers and sisters that have gone through this process, this is about you and what you can achieve. And as I said, if you can say that you gave it your best shot, then really nobody's going to be able to criticize you for that in life. Understanding that that learning is supposed to be challenging, and exams, the exam period, yes, it can be a time where that is really at the forefront. It can be extremely challenging for some students, but it is a process. Lots of students have been through it before. You will be able to get through it as well. Remember, doing the right things in the lead up to this process is only going to be to your benefit. So those students who know they've got exams coming up but are not going to be prepared to put some time and effort into arranging some time for themselves to be able to achieve their best result, well, yeah, they are probably going to have that found out. Yes, trying to remember versus understanding, again, can be a bit of a challenge. Always look to see whether you can apply your understanding of key concepts, apply it to something in the real world or your own experiences as well. We certainly do need to be having students being proactive about their own learning. So as you're becoming older now, so we're talking largely to students who are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, it is time for you to be taking more responsibility for your own learning. And the exam process is really a time where you can shine. You can actually, with the right level of effort and commitment, you can actually get some great reward for that hard work. And it says research shows that roughly 50% of a student's final results are attributed to student factors such as motivation, work habits, and prior knowledge of content. But those first couple there about motivation and work habits, that is huge. So even for some students who may be feeling like other parts of this term or this semester haven't exactly sort of gone to plan, it's certainly not too late in being able to rectify some of that. So in terms of some key tips moving forward then, we do need to get organised. How are you going to go about getting organised? So time is going to be a pretty key one there. So I think that'll come up in one of the other slides. We're talking about study effectively. So you've got to be, I guess, mindful of when are you studying? Where are you studying? Like physically, what does that look like? How are you studying? Are we just rereading our notes? Are we looking to apply them in some different way? Are we practicing some past questions maybe that have been given to us? Maybe we'll get some practice. Most of your teachers are going to give you practice questions or practice exam questions during that exam preparation week. Coming back to like what we said there earlier about key knowledge, key content, understanding those key action words. So what is the difference between, like we said before, list and evaluate? If it's a question that's going to only attract 2 marks on the exam, I'm not going to spend half an hour on that question, because then that will take away time for me to devote to a question where it's going to require a lot more marks. Knowing how to tackle those multiple choice questions, we went through a little bit of that. Some of you might be asked to tackle an essay style question. And again, your teachers will work through those structures around how to go about doing that. And certainly having a plan is going to be essential. So a key would be in asking all of your teachers, get clarity around, you already know how long your exams are going to be, but ask them, what mark allocation is this exam going to be? So some of your exams might be out of, say, 50 marks, and you've got 85 minutes of writing time. Other exams might be out of 100 marks. And so that'll have an impact on how much time can you spend per question. Just quickly going through the next couple in here. So these are also some things that we can ask our parents to help out with as well, and being able to encourage your child to look at summarizing topics that have been covered. So hopefully they've already got notes in their workbooks and so on that they can come back to. So you can help with asking them to summarize that for you, because that's one way of being able to look to synthesize and apply that knowledge. And sort of right down towards the end there, making sure students, again, you need to take a lead role in this, but eating well and sleeping well, making sure you've got that good home school work balance. I know many of you have probably got some part-time jobs. Believe me, your employers will know when it comes to exam time, they would expect students not to be available for work as much as what they would normally. So please make sure you're having those conversations with your employers as well. We talk about the physical setup at home. So there's a couple of little comparative photos in here. Obviously, the one on the left is the more appropriate one to help with that organisation and free from distractions. A nice quiet place is always preferable. Parents can also help students in being able to have them manage their time. So they talk about putting together some sort of study schedule and planner. So again, remember, you are going to get an exam timetable. You know that your exams are going to be spread out over a week and a half, and you're only required to actually be at school the times that you have your exams. So you might actually have 1 or 2, maybe even 3 days in between exams, but knowing what order that they're coming up, so you can actually put a planner together in being able to, just note that one, sorry, in being able to take some control around how you're going to use your time. So make sure you make it clear, you know, which exams are coming up and what does that mean in terms of the lead up to preparing for each of those exams. I would encourage that all family households, eventually when the timetable comes out, that they have a copy of the timetable somewhere central in the house, maybe stuck up on the fridge somewhere, and your child's subjects sort of highlighted so we know exactly what days and times they're coming up. Because as I said, time management is going to be a pretty important skill to exercise to support a successful exam period. As I said, it can get quite intensive, even though the exams are spread out over a week and a half. But for most of you, you're going to have anywhere between sort of 4 to 6 exams. So it is important to be able to make sure that you are managing that time. And then just finally there, just in terms of maybe some other ways to support your child. Please be aware of any upcoming, SACs and assessment tasks, those pressure times. So obviously we know where the exam period's coming up, but a lot of students will be just finishing off some assessments in this next week or two in the lead up to them preparing for the exams. Please be encouraged to talk to your child about what they're doing or what they're studying or how they're doing that, and maybe making some note of some points that we've raised here tonight as well. If there are any ongoing concerns, certainly about anxieties that maybe some of your children are experiencing or displaying at home, we certainly don't want this period to be one that has that type of an effect. Some natural anxiety is fine, but if you feel like it's getting out of hand, please make sure that you are contacting one of us at the college for some support there, please. So I'll just bring that to a close there in terms of, again, thank you very much for your general attendance and patience with listening to all that information. I haven't been able to see if there's been too many questions being asked in the chat, but I'm happy to leave that open now for any other general questions that maybe we could answer that we haven't quite covered with the slides. And I will also, in a few minutes, just ask any of those students and parents with a child in Year 12 or completing Year 12 subject can stay online also the next few minutes just to go through some slides specific to that year level.
Rick, if I may ask a question, you mentioned earlier that kids that are studying Year 11 but have Year 12 subjects because they're accelerating, and that the Year 12 subject takes priority. I assume that the same would be in place for Year 10 students that are accelerating in Year 11 subjects, that if there was a clash between a Year 11 exam and a Year 10 exam, that the Year 11 one will take precedence?
Yes, thanks for the question. It probably shouldn't be a matter of that with the Year 10 and 11 exams sort of being blocked and treated on the exam timetable. It's slightly different to what we're doing with the Year 12s. But certainly, yes, if that did happen, if there was a clash, then probably the preference would be then through the year level leader that they would ask you to do the Year 11 one first and then to reschedule the Year 10 one. But I don't foresee that should be happening too much there. The difference that we've got this year is that with the Year 12 practice exams, they're running basically at the same time that they would normally be having class time, whereas the Year 10 and 11 exams are sort of blocked on as whole subjects. So yeah, I don't sort of foresee maybe that issue taking place so much for Year 10s and 11s as it might be for some Year 11s doing Year 12. But yes, no, thank you for asking that. If I maybe just asked any of the other teachers that are out there, were any other questions that were coming through or something that we need to re-highlight?
We've dealt with them as they've come up, Rick. So yeah, you've covered everything.
Terrific. Okay, thank you so much. All right, well, I am going to thank again everybody for coming on board tonight. Really do appreciate that. And I'm just going to push on to just another little section there for any other families that like to stay on that have got kids in year 12 or year 11 doing a year 12 subject there as well. Okay, so thank you very much, and if you are leaving us at this point, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. Okay, so we did say, I think that we would just spend a little bit of time on getting some clarity around some VCE Year 12 issues there as well. Now that each of you are sort of well into that process, but just reconfirming things like the basic requirements of VCE. So we are looking for each student to complete at least, satisfactorily complete at least 16 units over their 2 years. And we know that at least 4 of those are going to come from an English group, and we need English plus 3 other subjects at year 12 to be successful in achieving the VCE and attracting an ATAR score. We spoke a little bit there before about the GAT, but that might be some new information for some of you. So the GAT stands for the General Achievement Test, and it is, as it says there, a test of general knowledge. And it's actually going to be a 3-hour test or 3-hour exam that covers those areas there: written communication, math, science, technology, humanities, arts, and social sciences. So, sometimes people refer to the GAT as being a bit of an IQ test. In some ways, it is a combination of multiple choice questions. I think from memory, there's 70 multiple choice questions, and then there's a few writing pieces as well. It is an essential part of the VCE for all students, and as we said, all students who are enrolled in at least one year 12 subject this year needs to sit the GAT. So if you are a year 11 student who's doing, for instance, year 12 legal studies, so yes, you'll be required to sit the GAT this year, and next year it'll be a different GAT, but it'll be pretty much the same format, and that is an important part, and we'll go through some information as to why that's the case. So for students who are in year 12, so I believe they'll be getting some support in preparing for the GATs during the year 12 home group sessions over the next couple of weeks. And for the year 11 accelerated students, there's a designated session that's been set aside for them on the 28th of May with myself in the afternoon to go through some information about preparing for the GAT. Really, the importance of the GAT is to act as a bit of an insurance policy. So that's generally how we would refer to it as students. And it's an insurance policy to give another level of information to VCAR about your child's capabilities in their levels of achievement. If you sort of understand that, yes, most students will be doing English. Not all students do English. Some of them might just do literature, some of them might just do one of the other subjects from the English group. But generally, they say that there's no one subject that all students in the state are completing. So to be able to give VCAR an indication of, and some, I guess, some knowledge around all students doing the same test, they have students complete this GAT. So when we look at it as an insurance policy, we want students to be able to take it seriously and to do their best on this, because in the event of when you are aiming to sit exams at the end of the year, if there is a particular reason why you cannot sit those exams because of illness, extreme illness, or something else serious that's taken place, that VCAR will actually refer to how you went in the GAT as another measure of what kind of mark you should be awarded. And really, it can only work in your favour. It can never work against you. So it is really important for students to take it seriously and to do their best on this particular assessment. So this is going to be on the 9th of June from 10 o'clock in the morning till 1:15 p.m. We won't have any other classes or exams running on that day to make sure that students can give it their best. As we said, terms like the ATAR might be something that is starting to pop up and being spoken about. So that stands for the Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank. So basically, it's a measure that allows student performance in the different states across Australia to be ranked or put on a comparable scale. It also means that students in Victoria will receive that ranking, and if they wanted to, they could apply for a course in any part of Australia and have that recognised. When it comes to working out how all of that is created, so it's that understanding of the links between excuse me, the SACs, which are the internal assessments that take place here at school, how they link with the exams that they will sit at the end of the year. So not our Taylor's Lakes ones, not our practice exams, but the VCAR ones. How that contributes then to creating a study score. So all students will receive then a score out of 50 as a study score, with the score of 30 out of 50 generally being seen as being the average mark in each subject. And then how those scores then contribute towards the ATAR, which is your ranking. The important thing, I guess, to try to consider with all of that is, whilst there's a lot going on, it is a very fair process, and it is one where there are a lot of checks and balances to make sure that your child receives the fairest results possible. So all of the all the internal scores, so we're talking about students completing their SACs or their SATs in those folio-based subjects. So all those scores they get from their teachers at Taylor's Lakes, they will eventually be moderated through this process of statistical moderation with how they achieved in the external measures, which are the exams and the GAT, and basically looking to make sure that they correlate quite closely, understanding that across any school there might be a range of teachers who just, to put it in one particular way, but there may be some that mark too easy, and so those marks need to be brought down closer to what the state averages are indicative of. There may be some teachers that maybe have marked a little bit too harshly, and so to be able to make sure that students aren't disadvantaged from that, again, they're moderated against some of those state figures as well. So it is a very fair process, and everybody's exam at the end of the year gets marked externally by at least 2 people. But even if those 2 people can't agree on a mark, it'll go to 3rd and sometimes even the 4th marking. So then eventually students will receive something like this called with their results and their study scores. So they will receive a grade based on how they've gone in their SACs and those results that have been reported on by their teachers, and that will be indicated by those letter grades like A+, A, B+, and so on. Students can already find those ranges as to what kind of mark should I be aiming to get if I'm hoping to get an A+ in this subject. So all of that is available on the VCAR website. If they would like to find out more about that, not sure where to start, please ask your child to come and see me, and I'll be happy to point them in the right direction with that. But this is an example here of a student and some of their results, and how these grades, like a B+ and a C, for some of those internal assessments, and then an A, usually it's the last column that is indicative of the exam grades, or the ones that are in that are shaded here at the moment. Something like maths methods, so students will actually sit 2 exams for that subject, for instance. And all of that again gets moderated to create a study score, which I said was out of 50. Then they add up all of those individual scores and they start grouping all of those students. You can imagine there's in excess of 40,000 students per year sitting in Year 12 VCE in terms of being able to determine those ranks for the ATAR. So there's another way of sort of indicating how that might look. With this student, English, math methods, chemistry, accounting, a vet subject, and economics. So even if they received, this is hypothetical obviously, but if they received a study score of 30 out of 50 for each of their subjects, there is also something referred to as scaling. So some of the students are starting to ask questions about that, or maybe they've asked some of those questions in the lead up to course counselling over recent years. But some of those results will be either scaled up or scaled down based on how difficult or otherwise VTAC might consider an achievement in a particular subject. So for instance, in this scenario, the student received a study score of 30 in English. That was seen as being a little bit easier than scoring a 30 in math methods, because that math methods score went up to 36 and the English score went down to 28. When it comes to contributing to your ATAR, they will always take your English result as one of the top 4, and then they'll look at what were the next 3 highest subjects that you achieved in. So for this student, it was math methods, chemistry, and economics. You can see them with a tick in the last column. And then with your additional subjects, you can see there that they will have what's referred to as 10% increment that is added to your overall aggregate ATAR. So this student that's ended up with study scores of 28, 36, 34, 30, 25, and 31 has accrued an aggregate of about 134. And then when they put that in comparison with all the other students across the state, that has come out as an ATAR of 75.45, which essentially means that this student received a score better than about 75% of students in the state. That's the way to receive that. Last couple of things there about special provision, but I know Malta Cuneo, our VAST coordinator and our Year 12 coordinator, has been leading the charge with this. But if you do feel as if your child needs to be considered for some special consideration in the lead up to exams, it is extremely important that you contact us as a school. It is not something that we can make a determination about. We do actually need to provide a level of documentation to VCAR to get an endorsement. So, but certainly if that is something that we need to be more mindful of, that we aren't at the moment, please make sure that we are sooner rather than later. And then just the last couple here, what if my child is sick on the day of the GAT or any other exam? So yes, illness is going to be part of this, this experience that we all have. However, the general rule there is that we do need to promote that we want students to attend all of their exams if they're able to. It has to be something though of, I guess, extreme seriousness in terms of being able to keep somebody away from a VCAR exam, including the GAT. So if you are not sure about something on the day, you should please make sure that you are contacting the school. You'll get some advice then as to whether you should attempt to make your way to the school or not. But having said that, you will need some documentation in place to be able to support your child being able to be considered for a derived exam score. Okay, so again, that's a process that's a little bit out of our hands as a school, but certainly one that we want to be able to support, certainly where appropriate. So there were just a last couple of things that we thought we might look to share with students and families of those students undertaking a Year 12 exam. Again, if there's any particular questions, things that that are playing on your mind, please feel free to, if you haven't already, maybe pop in the chat, or feel free to call one out, and we'll look to cover those for you now. That's fine. If not, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Apologies we've gone over time, but thanks for staying on board. If you feel as if there is a question that comes up either later tonight or the next couple of days when you're discussing things as a family, yeah, please make sure that you look to contact any one of us at the school. As I said, there's a number of us online tonight, but it doesn't have to be just us, but certainly myself, Antoinette Mazzarotto, Teresa Burlack, or Tim Williams. We'll be happy to look to give you those answers that you're seeking. So again, thanks very much. I do appreciate that. I'll stay online just for the last minute or two, just in case there are any of those last minute questions. But again, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.